No, not yet. Now we did it. You said we did it
We've
a
done
little
it.
bit too early. So we're live. Now there's that awkward moment, right, where it takes a minute before we're actually live. So we're like, are we live?
Yeah.
Or we're not live? Figure might just jump in. We're live with the GTN show. Oh shit, we're live already. That was actually way less of a delay than I was expecting it to be. So we are live already. But yeah, this is the
Love
GTN
it.
show. I figure maybe we give the folks a little spiel of like I gotta hide the post. I forgot to hide the LinkedIn post that we were talking about earlier. That's okay. You know, we'll figure it out as we go. Technical difficulties on the first run. But yes, the GTN show. The goal here is it's actually inspired by. I don't know if anyone listening, if anyone even is listening yet, if they'll know what the WAN show is, but it's inspired by the WAN show, which is done by like Linus Tech Tips. It's like a tech YouTuber where they do a weekly show talking about like what's going on in the world of, you know, they're more like computer tech and hardware and that sort of stuff. But our goal here is to talk a bit about, you know, what's going on in the world of like B2B, go to market, sales, marketing, what we're seeing, interesting news, interesting developments, interesting tactics, posts. It's a talk show, I guess is the best way to put it. That sounds really weird. It seems like I don't feel like we're like highfalutin enough to have a talk
You're
show, I guess.
Oprah.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
Oprah, Mac.
Yeah. So we're gonna be the Oprah of B2B go to market. So if everyone looks under your seat, you will find you found 6 free new leads. Congratulations. But yeah, so it's me, it's Christian. Our goal is to do this once a week on Fridays. I don't know. We're kind of winging it. So it's so weird because I'm like looking at you, but I'm not looking at you. It's
Yeah.
anyways, gonna have to get used to it. Trying to make it feel like we're not. Trying to make it feel like we're in person, even though we're not.
Yeah. Let us know. Let us know what you think of the amazing foreground and background that Gerhard has created for us. I love it. We've
It's
been
not
getting love
virtual.
for it
This is
already.
actually what the Comstor office looks like. Like we actually work by a volcano. That's real. That might erupt at any moment and kill us all. We have no idea. Yeah, I guess we can jump right into this. Maybe we want to. We got two like news topics to talk about. One's a little bit out of date now because it's from like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Which one do you want to start with? Do you want to start with the first one or the second one on our list?
I think the first one. I think it's
It's the
fresh.
title. It's also the title of what we called the stream, right? So the with 42 million, is this the future of sales? Do you want to? Oh, I have to do this to point at you. Do you want to take us away?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
going
yeah.
to take a while to get used to
Yeah.
that.
The of course the big headline at the moment everyone's talking about in the go to market go to network SaaS world is Clay with what was it a Series B of 46 million, taking their total raise to 62 million and valuation to half a billion. I mean, it seems to be everywhere at the moment. If you're not warming email accounts and using Clay, are you even doing outbound? Seems to be the vibe. What have you seen, Mac? What do you think about it?
I mean, I think it was what was it, 5, 6 days ago when they announced it. Was last week? I don't remember the exact timing. Um, but yeah, it definitely took over my LinkedIn feed for a day or two. And it's funny, like we've done LinkedIn feed takeovers, and my stance is always like there's always like a slight moment of like skepticism whenever something takes over the LinkedIn feed because you're like, is this real? Is this paid for? In Clay's case, I know they have tons of fans and they're Clay partners and whatnot, so I don't think it was on that side. I do know they did they gave people like an offer of like $5,000 for whoever's post got the most engagement in their community, which I think is an interesting way to do it. It's so there's an element of like how many people were doing it because they thought they'd get $5,000 versus like actually doing it. A blend there.
Yeah.
It's a cool tool. I've used it. I actually think I can't remember whose comments it was I saw, but they put it right where I think they commented saying that Clay is positioning terribly. Like the position of like AI personalized outreach, I think does not do the tool service. Uh,
Yeah.
it just doesn't do it. It just doesn't do it justice. Service is not the right word. Words are hard, right? I'm curious what you think.
It's interesting. So I find it really interesting on the Who is Clay for part of the website and the FAQ. I think it's really interesting that they talk about almost like a quarterback user, more like someone in ops, getting everything clean, getting everything set up, even doing a lot of the automations, and then setting up SDRs with set lists. I just think that's interesting because when I first saw it, I compared Clay a lot more to like Apollo, like a lot more to as an individual, where am I putting my list? Where am I building my sequence? Where am I owning what I'm doing? I find it really interesting for the future of SDRs, BDRs, like how much of it can be centralized if it's already being personalized, if you're already able to clean the data all within one tool. Does that mean we'll get more cold calling? Because if more of the kind of online automation can be taken care of, does that free people up to do the human part? Uh, but my concern with all of these personalization tools is, and you see it with like LinkedIn comments, where people copy paste the post into ChatGPT and say, write a comment for me, and it's personalized, but everyone gets the same personalized response to send. So if 20 people are using Clay, all outbounding the same individual, all using the same AI to write the personalized email, they're all going to write the same intro, they're all going to write the same body, and it will be personalized to that individual, but 20 different people will have sent that personalization. And that's my
I
concern.
think it's also like how, I think there's a broader debate like how important is personalization really in B2B. I think it can help, but at the end of the day, like I get messages once in a while, like they clearly know I like dinosaurs, and they open the message with a dinosaur fun fact. I'm like, of course I'm going to open that. I'm curious if it's a fact I know, right? And then the thing they're emailing me about is like HR software for like 2,000 person companies, and you're like, okay, dino fact, great, got me to open the email. I am not your target buyer. So this is sort of a waste of the personalization, and the relevance isn't there. I think it's pretty cool from a list building perspective. Um, I do wonder, as you said, like when everyone has access to the same data, like it becomes a commodity. How much value is there really in third party intent data or third party personalization data or third party list building in a lot of ways? Um, so I've mostly really only used Clay for list building. The one thing I found interesting about it was that I felt like I had to like really, 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 really know every detail of every company I was looking for, which is great if you have like a really, really specific ICP, right? Like I only want companies in Europe with this rep, like da 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 da. When it's like, but when your ICP is a bit broader, I felt it was a bit harder to build a list. That could just be me, and I'm sure like the Clay fans will tell me I'm just using it wrong, which is probably true as well, possibly. Um, but just to compare it to a tool I've started using recently called Telescope, which is a similar like they do list building as well. Clay felt like I had to learn a new language in order how to use it, right? Like, and that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. That just means like maybe it's not for me. Maybe eventually I need to hire
Mhm.
a technical go to market specialist who can handle that, like RevOps and things like that. Um, but Telescope was cool. I think they pitched themselves, or at least I heard someone pitch it to me this way, as Tinder for lead list building, essentially. And when you signed up, it was like you put in like the basic stuff, like I care about these personas at companies of this size in Europe or North America or whatever, just some basic criteria. And then it gave you almost like a Tinder like feed of like, here are 15 to 20 companies that match that criteria. And you go through and be like, yes, no, like right company, wrong persona, wrong company. And you have that nuance. And after going through like 15 to 20 companies, it was like, okay, we have enough information now. Would you like to spend credits to basically build a list based on the information you gave us? And I found that compared to Clay, Telescope gave me a much more interesting list, I would say. I was saying when I built lists in Clay, I would get like, half the companies on the list. I'd be like, I already knew about these companies. Like this was not net new value for me. Whereas Telescope, I was much more likely to get companies that were like, oh wow, like I've never heard of these companies. Like looking up, like, oh wow, like these actually are a good fit. Like, great, this is really net new information for me. And it felt way faster to get to value. And dare I say, it was actually fun. And I don't think anyone would describe list building as fun. I know when we were in Prague the other week, you and I went through it together, and it was like, yeah, it felt fun. It almost feels like
Yeah.
Clay is a better version, like a better, more technical waterfall enrichment powered version of the way lead lists have been built in the past, Apollos and Zoom infos, etc. Whereas Telescope to me feels like a rethink of like what should the process of list building actually look like.
Yeah, I totally agree. When I saw you trying out Telescope as well, what was that really nice upsell flow they had, where you like removed 20 accounts? It was like, okay, well, do you want to use 20 tokens or credits
Yeah, I mean
to
it's
fill this?
very similar model to what Clay does. It's all credit based, right? So like if you want to get 100 leads, it costs you 100 credits. But yeah, they refunded credits I think based on me telling like, hey, actually this one you gave me is a bad fit, which was obviously a nice user experience. It just felt way faster for me to get to what I was hoping to get to. Obviously, I was only scratching the surface with Clay.
Yeah.
And obviously I have no idea what their revenue is, and it's, raising that amount of money in this market is challenging no matter what. I suspect a lot of the data they're buying, I mean, that's what they're doing. They're buying data from other sources, right? They do waterfall enrichment. They're getting data from tons of sources. So at the end of the day, I wonder how much of Clay's product is like defensible versus, can other people come along, buy the same data, build the same product, offer it cheaper versus like, I don't know how much, like, I think they're doing a good job. Like the network effect and the moat they have right now is the community they built around themselves, the fans,
Yeah,
the
for
Clay
sure.
partners, the people that are showing others how to do it. I think they have executed that honestly better than any company I've seen since like HubSpot 10 years ago, as far as like building a network of third-party supporters who honestly do more work in growing your company than it feels like you're doing yourself.
Yeah, and totally agree because you're seeing kind of partners coming out and saying, "Hey, we're the experts at helping get it implemented." And as a company, there's nothing better than seeing people come out and saying, "Hey, we're going to go out and just get this installed at 20, 50, 50, 60, 70, 80 companies for you."
Yeah.
That's the dream.
Yeah. So I think it's
Um,
they're gonna do great. I think they're gonna spearhead a new category of like list building tools. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, a Zoom Info or someone come in and grab them for $1 billion, like that's, or a HubSpot or a Salesforce or someone like that in the next two,
yeah,
3 years. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
interesting. Who do you think would be the perfect fit for them?
I think any of the big CRM players, like I could, like, HubSpot just invested what, a couple $100 million in buying Clearbit.
Yeah,
And I mean, they're different products. They're not really competitors, but I don't know. If I was Salesforce looking at HubSpot being more of a danger having bought Clearbit, I would say Clay is potentially an attractive option to sort of bring a modern product into, everyone knows, right? Salesforce is far from a modern.
yeah,
But
and
that
yet
was
it
the
still
question of like,
grows.
that was the question of like, would Clay want to be a part of Salesforce? Oh, I don't know. They seem like, I don't know, from what I know and what I've seen from their team, they seem like they wouldn't do so well inside
Yeah.
Salesforce.
Um, Talking about mergers and acquisitions, anything else on Clay, or we can move to topic two.
I would say Neil said doesn't fix the quality issue. I think Neil, are you referring to like the quality of the data? I think that's so. I unrelated. I saw a post earlier today that someone was saying like, what is totally legal in go to market that surprises you? And their contribution was buying other people's contact data. And like obviously you and I are both in Europe. I moved here recently. You know, you're from here, and it's yeah, it'll be interesting to see what that landscape just as a whole looks like in 5 to 10 years, just from like a privacy perspective in general, let alone an accuracy uh, perspective.
What happens if no one can buy that data? What does the world look like?
I don't know. I think if you ask a lot of people on LinkedIn, they would tell you that that will never happen because entire businesses would fall apart overnight. But it wouldn't be the first time that governments have made rules that have made entire businesses fall apart overnight. So uh, I don't know. Um, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It'll be
We'll
interesting.
see.
I mean, it's already like, you've got RB2B and tools like that, which already are like, we do not work in Europe because we know very well that we are not legal in Europe, right? So there's already a whole category of data tools that just have chosen to, like, I once in a while I'll go to like a US website, sometimes like US news websites, and they'll just be like, sorry, you're in Europe, so we can't serve you because
Yeah.
that's easier than complying with European rules. Um, so I could see that happen as well, where it's just like, hey, the American market's big enough, so as long as the American market's fine with selling data, who gives a shit, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're right. Like that economy is fine with it. It will keep growing from it. And there's
Yeah.
just more and more big businesses that it makes sense to use that kind of approach.
Yeah. All right. Want to move on to topic number 2 that we wrote down here?
Let's do it. Crossbeam and Reveal merging. Now we did say this is a couple of weeks old now, but still super relevant. I think it's very interesting to see, the biggest player in the US market, the biggest player in the European market, kind of maybe just joining together and saying maybe we're stronger together than both trying to now cross over the pond
Yeah.
and beat the other. What have you seen from this?
I think for context, as for anyone, I assume most people listening know what they are, but I can't tell you how often I bring up Crossbeam as a tool, and people are like, "What's that?" I'm like, I'm like, it's when you realize like how much room there is for companies that seem like they've taken the market to keep growing
Yeah.
as a sidebar, right? But Crossbeam and Reveal are the two biggest like partner mapping tools. I don't know exactly what they call their category. I'm blanking on the name right now,
Well,
but
it's near bound and ecosystem led growth.
that's what they call their like thesis, but like the actual tool
Yeah.
category is I think account
Good question.
mapping or whatever. Basically, what they do is it's like you and I run two companies. We're partners with each other. I connect my CRM to Crossbeam. You connect your CRM to Crossbeam, and we can now see that like, oh, we're both trying to sell to Gong. Maybe we should work on that deal together. Like that's I'm oversimplifying
Yeah.
it. So if someone from one of those two companies is listening and wants to correct me in the chat, all two of our live listeners, feel free. um, but yeah, so I mean, Crossbeam has raised 117 million total. Last round was in 2021, 76 million. Reveal has raised 54 million. They raised a Series A of 50 million in 2022. Now, I feel like I personally can speak to these two um, deeply because they both raised around the same time that we raised our overinflated round. So I think them merging is great. I wonder, it's like they woke up one day and were like, wait, like we're all about like ecosystems. We should just make one ecosystem, and that totally makes sense. But I do wonder how much of it comes down to they both raised really inflated rounds, and it might have been the only way to like make it work essentially. Because there are very, 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 very few companies that raised that much money in 2021 and 2022 that are living up to the valuations that they raised that money at. Um, so there's that. There's also about like if account mapping and partner ecosystems was like a major industry and not just like in B2B, I would have this would have gotten I think monopoly antitrust flags going because like they are like the only two players really. I can't even name who's in third place in that market. Um, so I think in the short term it's interesting. I think for partner folks, a lot I've spoken to are excited. They don't have to pick one or the other. They can just like use one. Um, but things like this are usually bad for consumers in the long term actually. So I suspect we'll see a number of players that are already existing out there that are small gain more traction over the next few years as they become the only alternatives.
Yeah. You may just see the same thing all over again, where a European comes out and competes with this merged company in Europe, a US competitor comes out, competes in the US because, yeah, this merged company will raise prices. Like
Yeah,
that's one of
that too.
there's a monopoly, you get to raise prices. And like you said, if the industry, if the category was bigger, there would be some antitrust going on. But don't get me wrong, they can still be huge, but they're small enough to avoid
Well, it's
the antitrust
usually it's like
situation.
if it doesn't impact consumers, it only impacts businesses.
True.
Usually, antitrust doesn't get involved because it's like, yeah, you're fucking over other companies. Who gives a shit, right? You're fucking over individual people. It's like the one time when laws actually seem to favor people over companies in the U.S., and that's like when
Yeah.
they actually do anything with antitrust, which is not very often in the last 20 years.
One thing I've heard about Crossbeam and Reveal buyers that was a bit of a problem was it was that classic thing where the buyer loved the idea, loved the shift, was like, cool, yes, let's buy the software. And then we're looking at Reveal and looking at Crossbeam and going, and teach us now how to do partner selling and how to have a partner ecosystem. And of course, Crossbeam's like, well, you kind of already needed to be working with some partners for this software to layer in. So I wouldn't be surprised as well whether there was maybe a huge appetite for the product and then a little bit of reality kind of
We saw a
hit
similar
home.
thing with community led growth in our original product where folks were like, this is awesome. I bought the product. Now help me build a community. And you're like, that's okay, but like you don't have a community yet. Like what are you doing? Which is well, I think that sort of Reveal. I think Reveal kicked Crossbeam's ass in the last few years from an education perspective.
Yeah.
Like with what they were doing with Nearbound, I think Nearbound was such a good term. It's a shame that it seems like Crossbeam is killing that in favor of ecosystem led because Nearbound, they have the resources they were doing. That team at Nearbound, they were doing such a good job. Isaac and I'm blanking on the other guy's name. I'm so sorry if you're listening to this, but they did such a good job building a movement and getting people to adopt a name. Like I haven't seen a job post say we do ecosystem led growth or mention it. I have seen
Yeah.
job posts like crazy in the last year that mention Nearbound. I've been on sales calls where someone says, "Oh, go to network. Our team's already thinking about Nearbound, so this makes sense for us." I've never once had someone say, "Oh, our team's already thinking about ecosystem-led growth, so this makes sense for us." I think throwing that out is a baby with the bathwater
I
mistake
think you're spot
on
on.
Crossbeam's end.
I, I feel that way with anything that's insert category led growth,
Yeah,
because the moment you put led in, it makes every other department in the company go, well, hang on, we're important. We're also leading.
yeah,
Nearbound, you can be product led growth and still be saying, yeah, but we're using Nearbound as a component of that. Whereas the moment you put led, you're asking an entire organization to get behind that as
yeah,
the sharp at the end of the stick, and you're creating internal arguments. You're creating
yeah,
arguments that don't need to be there.
yeah. I just also just think Nearbound's a better term. Just it sounds better.
Yeah.
You're right. Like the X-led growth. I mean, we did community-led growth originally, right? So like I've been a part of creating that problem. So I feel like I'm allowed to maybe speak to the stupidity that problem is, but also B2B in general just loves naming things. B2B is just upset. Like we actually, with our NDR playbook, someone commented on being like, "Isn't this just like what a good SDR should be doing anyways?" And I was like, "Yes, actually, 1,000% yes." But if I'd called it the SDR playbook, you probably wouldn't have clicked on it, right? So like, there is some truth to like sometimes giving something a unique name. We're all marketers at heart. We're all trying to market our own bullshit in some way, shape, or form, right? If we're entirely honest with ourselves. Um, but yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I know a lot of the partner folks I've spoken to are excited by it because it makes their life easier. Um, but only time will tell.
Cool.
It's also hard to
Anything
merge
else
two
on?
companies, so we'll just see how well they actually do that. Like, how much of
Yeah.
Reveal was doing a good job of gets dropped in the process, and does it end up just being
Well,
like it's
my
Crossbeam still, and they just happen to buy all of Reveal's customers? I don't know.
yeah. But my background was customer success, and we had Tatango and Catalyst merge, and they're very different products. Like that's not the same infrastructure. That's not the same back end, front end. It,
And they're still
people,
separate
they're
products, I
different,
think,
and
right? Like they're not. You
for
can
at
still
least
buy
for the time
Tatango.
being, yeah. Because Tatango as well had some huge enterprise customers that you can't just go in and say, hey, by the way, we're changing the product. Like, that these are customers that have paid millions of dollars, $1 million per year to
Yeah,
make sure that the product is almost custom to them in areas. So yeah, that merge is going to take time, which I think leads back to your point of some small players can come up. The merge is going to take time. It's going to be slow. Pricing is going to go up. A small player can come in and do quite well here.
yeah, I I fully agree. Um, It'll be interesting. I like everyone who I've met from both of those teams. So I hope it works out for them, and it will to some extent. But it is always interesting when there's only two players in a space and they go, let's just be one player, and you're always like, okay, now what?
Yeah. If you're using the product and you like the product, move to 3 years as quickly as possible,
Yeah,
because if you don't, you might not like the conversation you have at the next renewal.
yeah, exactly. Um, well, that's pretty much it for our two main news things. We have other stuff we wanted to talk about. And we're still trying to figure out the format for this show. So, you know, once again, for the two people watching, let us know what you like and what you don't like and what you want to see us talk more about. Um, should we jump into? I mean, you put this thing about music in here. I don't know how relevant that is, or if we should save that for a future thing. I feel like that's a rabbit hole we're gonna get really stuck in if we go down that one right now.
Okay, we can come back to it if we've got time, but I just know how much fun we had
Yeah,
playing with that website. So
yeah.
we can
It's
we can keep it there for now.
yeah. I will. We'll come back to that one.
Cool. Let's jump to LinkedIn then maybe.
Yeah. Now we can test if our fancy screen sharing works. So I'm gonna pull up this post here and click this button, and it should should now be, oh nope, that direction. I'm always like I'm like turned around, like mirrored, so it's like it's there. Look at this post from Scott Leese, that we're all looking at here. This is a post from a few days ago from Scott. And Scott's obviously a big proponent of go-to-network and using your network and referrals and all that sort of stuff. And I just thought this was a really interesting concept to talk about. So he says, in 2021, he made a 16,000 commission check based on one conversation. In 2022, he made a $21,000 commission check based on one conversation. In 23, he made a $36,000 commission check based on one conversation. Each one was based on a text message to a former colleague. Essentially, he was basically texting people in his network that he knew. And this little video of him playing, I'll pause that so it's not like distracting down there. He basically, was leveraging his network to help open doors for people. I have two takes on this, but one positive and one, I won't call it negative. I'll call it maybe like realistic and less positive. But I'm curious to get your take on this to start.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. We're seeing companies like User Gems, Champify that are helping you basically know who's the person you should text, like who's that colleague that's moved somewhere, who's that champion that's moved somewhere. I think of course, something that's missing here is the relationship was kept warm. Like you could have had a former colleague.
This wasn't Scott selling his own stuff. This was Scott making money by referring another company to someone in his network.
Damn.
So he independently was making these commission checks.
Holy moly. I know someone doing well
different
with HubSpot referral, but not this well. That's amazing. It shows the trust we can have in an individual. Like if, you look to Scott and go, Scott, you know the space, you know my company. Tell me where I should be looking. Yeah, it's over here. Just put me in touch directly with a good AE. Because we've also had that situation where you want to buy a piece of software, but you didn't have the best experience, and then you had a new company and you don't go back because of the buying experience. So I've definitely helped people in the past as well. Like, okay, you want to speak to this company, let me put you directly in touch with someone that I know has been there 3 years, can walk you through the process properly.
Yeah.
I think, and we've talked about this, that the influencer part of B2B SaaS is only going to get bigger. Super exciting to see what Scott's achieved here. What about you?
So I think it's a great example of leveraging network, but I think it's also, what's the word I'm looking for? I think, obviously I think people should be compensated for time, effort, etc. But I think as soon as there's a monetary incentive in a warm intro or a referral, the quality of that referral on average, I'm not saying Scott's were the case, but just like an average across the thing is like, right, so am I making this referral because I actually think this referral is good for you?
Yeah.
Or am I making this referral because I'm going to get paid for making the referral? And I wonder how much, I think there's a time and a place for it, but I think it's almost like if you like stack rank your order of like best path for a referral, like a current customer who's just actually using the product and can actually just be like, yeah, I use Gong. Gong is awesome. You should also use Gong. That is the most powerful type of word of mouth and the most powerful type of referral. The type that just happens because someone is genuinely a fan. Then you have I'm asking you, a real customer. I'm saying, hey, Christian, you use Gong. Can you refer Scott to me because I think he should also use Gong? And you're like, yep, I would be happy to do that. That's great. That has slightly less value, but still works. And then you have the third one, which is, I'm going to pay you. You're not even a Gong user necessarily, but like, people, can you open the door? It's basically, B2B affiliate marketing, right? And I think we saw in the last decade how much affiliate marketing in the B2C space, just got destroyed, right? It became like click farms and SEO junk, just being like link clicking garbage, trying to earn a commission for this and that. Yeah, I think Neil just said it correctly. You should only get paid on the result. Fully agreed. You should only get paid on the result. I wonder if people find out that the only reason you're making referrals to them is because you're getting paid, potentially paid to do it. Do they stop trusting you? And I think it's like, I'm not saying it ever happens. It's like the influencers, right? Getting paid to do a post, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're getting paid to post all the time, your audience is going to suddenly be like, okay, well, now I don't really trust you anymore because every other post of yours is paid. And like, I know influencers and voices on LinkedIn where that's been the case, where I'm like every third post of yours is about rep view. Like, stop. Like I don't trust anything you posted. Like even when you're now authentically recommending a tool, I'm like, did you get paid for this? I don't know anymore. So I think it's great, as Neil said. Like you should only get paid on the success of it, so you're not doing garbage stuff. Um, I would just say my word of warning to anyone doing it is make sure you're like very intentional about it and you're not doing it just for the check.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you end up with like referral commission breath, right? It's the same thing where I'm doing this because I'm gonna get a check. I'm not doing it because I actually think this tool is gonna help you. And then you're like you're wasting that social capital. And you might get a couple of checks now, but I think the long term impact is gonna be negative if you overdo it. So I just say if you're an influencer who's being approached to do referrals or affiliates for a B2B tool, just make sure you're actually selective in which tools you work with, whether it's for paid posts or referrals or things like that. Bonus point, like use the tool yourself before you make a referral or do a post. I can't tell you how often I see people that clearly have never touched the tool they're being paid to do a referral for. And if you're a company reaching out to someone like Scott to do a referral, give him the tool to use. Let them use it, let them play around with it, show them the value, because they're also going to be much more likely to make a good referral because they're actually going to know what the hell they're talking about. So
Yeah,
that's
I
my
think that's spot on.
take on it. Yeah.
I think there's I totally agree with be careful with your credibility. It takes a lifetime to build, and with some, you do the wrong thing, you can destroy it in a second with someone in your network that you really value as well.
Yeah.
I think, and you touched on this, the other thing just to be aware of is like, same with that, influencer marketing in B2C, like, are you helping them with awareness or are you directly trying to make people buy the product? Because you
Two
can
very
help with
different motions.
awareness. Exactly. You can help with awareness and be really upfront on like, hey, I don't know if this product's going to be right for you, but this is why I like it. Click here if you want to learn more. And like, this is a referral link, but like, I'm not directly telling you to buy it. Very, very different when
I think
someone
also
comes to you and goes,
being
what would you recommend?
transparent, right? Like
Yeah.
telling someone it's a referral. Like there's nothing worse than like the hidden referral link where it's like I've had one or two times where I have been caught by a post where I'm like, oh, that actually sounds really cool. And I click and it's like, and you see the URL and it's like, question mark equals ref equals Christian. And you're like, you like, come on. And now I just, even though it's like the expectation was high. So now you just like, the fall is even greater actually in the trust, right? It's like, it's worse.
This brings us perfectly onto something I've not added to the agenda, but I saw earlier today and I wanted to bring up because you raised recently that you've been approached to have your posts be used as promoted
Oh, as
by
like
other
LinkedIn
brands.
thought leader ads, as they call it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's but like promoted posts on LinkedIn, they're doing a really good job of blending that in and not noticing apart from this just word promoted in a one little spot. There's that you might have
Yeah.
seen an instantly post. It's on my feed, I think, every single day.
And they
And
definitely
it's
it's brilliant of LinkedIn. They are way I'm much more likely to read them than the traditional ads. Way more.
oh for sure. For sure. And it's this one is like this is the outbound tech stack I build with $300, something like that. And it's like, like HubSpot, instantly's number three. And that's really what the call to action is. Then they've been very smart where it's like, oh, if I had $200 more, I would also buy clay. So they've also done a really good job of like, well, hang on, we can hang on to the coattails of another thing that's getting a lot of buzz. Man,
Yeah.
I think that was on my feed 3 times. And it was the same post, right? It's not a post by 3 different people. It's the same
Yeah.
post.
Yeah.
And the third time I saw it, my brain finally went like,
I've already
why
seen
is
this
LinkedIn
post.
showing me this again? Like normally
Yeah.
things disappear on this platform, not come back to the top. And that's when I saw the promoted. So that's
Yeah.
an interesting one because, you know, is that awareness? Is that referral? Is that genuine? How is it written?
So
It
I
yeah.
will say what so I'd never touched I mean and the thought leader ads are relatively new. I think they're like in the last 6 months on LinkedIn. So they haven't been around for that long. Um, so the brand that reached out to me, I won't name them for now because I don't think the ad is live, but it'll be interesting to maybe talk about in a future video, like if it did anything for them. For starters, my post wasn't actually about the company. So that's one thing I think is cool. It was a concept and I quoted the company for a study they had done. So it's not like, it does not feel like an ad at all. They're definitely going for just top of funnel brand awareness. And like, my post is about the same sort of things that they believe in as a company, right? For starters, they reached out to me and asked, am I willing to do this? So I was like, that was nice. And then I didn't realize it, but actually I got an email from LinkedIn being like, hey, this company wants to use your post for thought leader ads. Do you approve? I actually had to go into LinkedIn and be like, yes, I approve of this post being used, which I think is so you can't just like be like, oh shit, Christian wrote a great post about my company. Let me just pay money and promote that. You can't just, you actually have to get the other person to agree to it. So I think there's a couple little things like that that are nice. Now, of course, I could also just write a post promoting Comsor and then approve Comsor to do thought leader ads on that. Like, and then it's just me writing a post that was designed to be an ad, and that's obviously happening a lot. But I just the experience being a third party who did not write the post for the purpose of an ad actually felt really good.
Nice. Okay, that's really cool. That's good to hear. Yeah, I think we're going to see more and more of that because it just blends in
Yeah.
so perfectly. And like you said, the smart companies will use it as just like positive awareness, like not even trying to direct you to a demo, but just even get you on the website.
But it's also the cool thing as well. It's like it's super symbiotic. Like I'm gonna get more attention on my post. It'll get more views. And I'll get potentially more followers, people that might now buy Comscore because of that. So it's like it's a really interesting way of like I'm trading. Like they're not paying me to do it, right? Like it's like you say you're getting exposure, but I never wrote the post for the purpose of being paid. So it actually, I don't know, like I said, the whole experience felt really good so far. Like the ad hasn't gone live yet. I don't think. I actually should check if the numbers on that have gone up. It would be really cool if I don't know if LinkedIn does this, but in that interface where I had to select if I was willing to let the post be promoted, it would be awesome to be able to see like, hey, you got 10,000 more impressions and 60 more followers because of this. Like, show me what the ROI for me was for participating in the influencer ad. I have had on the more negative side of that, I have had competitors to Comsor reach out and offer me money to do a paid post, which is really funny to me. Like really generic copy paste message. Like they clearly just like, use some influencer tool, picked like people in the GTM space with X amount of followers, copy, like there was zero personalization in it, but it was, that's where it was like, okay, the people who are getting this message from you don't know shit about your product. Like you are just picking anybody who's willing to take a $500 check to write a post. I don't know that I already was like not super trusting of like paid influencer posts. But as soon as I saw like this is the type of quality that like this is the amount of thought that goes into picking who I pay for a post, it's like there's a time and a place for them, but man, they're mostly bullshit.
With the message that you get from LinkedIn,
Yeah.
does it offer payment in that message?
No.
Or
So LinkedIn doesn't offer any, from what I can tell, there's no way to pay to do a thought leader ad. That would have to be done outside the platform. It was just, I had to approve that this one post was allowed to be used. And I think it gave them, I think it had like a 3-month window and it was like, you'll have to reapprove in 3 months if they want to keep running ads using it. So I can't just be like, yep, here's my post forever. And like, not that anyone would run an ad on it forever, but it is an area I definitely want to experiment with with Comsor. We've had a lot of people do positive posts about Comsor in the last 6 months. And I would love, we should try it out and just share findings.
Because we should look, is it the same cost as just running a normal advert? Is it cheap? Is it more expensive? We should do some research.
The CPC on average is lower for thought leader ads, probably because once again, it doesn't feel like an ad. So people are more likely to engage with it, but it's also going to depend on who it's coming from. Is your targeting on it right? Is the messaging good? Right. So, but it could be cool to pick, 3, like it'd be kind of cool to experiment, pick like 6 posts, 3 that are from team members, 3 that are not from team members, put $1,000 behind each of them for a month and just see what happens. It'd be super interesting to do.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, because I don't shit anything ads, so.
Well, this is the perfect way to figure it out, an experiment.
Learn by doing, right?
Absolutely. What was the next post that we pulled out?
The next post we have here, first, I didn't name the tab, so I don't know which one we're going to click onto. Okay, this one is from Matthew Roberts over at Mosaic. I saved this. This is from a while. It's from a week ago. Wow, time has no meaning. In my brain, I saw this post like 2 months ago. Time is made up, and we're all just making shit up as we go, aren't we? Anyways. So this is a cool thing that he saw in Outreach. He opened up Outreach, and when you open up a tool and they'll have like a pop-up being like, hey, here's an event coming up, or here's a new product feature. And like, I don't know about you, but 9 times out of 10, I'm like, just go the fuck away. I'm here to do a thing. Like, get out of my face, right? What they did here was kind of cool, was they basically took content from a partnership they did with 30 Minutes to President's Club, which is like a media brand, like a podcast, a community, a
Yeah, yeah,
newsletter.
really good show.
Um, and what they did here, if I can like zoom in a bit, um, was they basically are sharing. Um, I think, yeah, they teamed up. So they did a partnered like uh, piece of content, and they basically are like, hey, here's some cool content to teach you how to do a thing. But it's like they're leveraging now like the recognizability of like Matthew saw this. He's like, oh, I know 30 Minute to President's Club, so he's like, oh, cool, this is interesting. Like, and it was like it's pattern breaking, right? Because you're expecting a message from outreach, but now you're getting a message from almost like an influencer who's not outreach but in outreach. And I just thought it was a really cool example of like reusing content, leveraging marketing content, but in app. I've just never, I've not seen anyone do this before. And as he said in his own poster, he's never seen anyone do it either. Um, so I thought it was really cool. Um, yeah.
How would you want to use something like this if you were to do it for comms, or how would you recommend others do something similar?
I mean, I think like for example, like we could use our NDR playbook as an example, right? If like you're leveraging like, hey, other people that you might recognize contributed to this resource that you might find relevant. Um, it's basically it's the same thing that happens in B2C all the time, right? It's like, and I'm seeing a lot more of this in B2B on LinkedIn recently. So let's put a pin. We'll come back to that. Um, but essentially, like audience cross pollination, right? I mean, this is what happens in music. This has been happening in music for
Yeah.
20 years, right? It's like I'm a country music star, you're a rap music star. If we do a combo song, we can cross pollinate our audiences, and now you'll have listeners that wouldn't have listened to your stuff otherwise, and vice versa for me. And this sort of feels like that, right? Companies are getting smarter about like leveraging other people's networks, whether it's like partner companies. I mean, it's co-marketing is what it is, right? But
Yeah.
I think it's a really cool modern way to do it. And once again, like everything in SaaS, companies will run it into the ground and abuse it and do it poorly. But I think this outreach example was well done.
And like, how do you think it could be done poorly? What would be a bad example of doing this?
I think I think in general, I wonder if outreach just did this across the board. Like everybody who logs into the app today is going to see this. Um, or if it was like, so I think the content was about advanced account based strategies for sales teams, right? Like I would say to do it right, finding the right ways to do targeting on it, right? Like, okay, like like let's say I actually don't know Outreach's platform really well besides the sequencing, to be fair. But if they had launched a feature a few months ago about, account based selling in an outreach, I would be like, okay, maybe only shows to folks who haven't used that part of our tool yet, because it's a good way to get them to like realize that we have that in our tool. It could get annoying where it's like if you just if every time I opened outreach, it's like here's a new piece of content you're like, Jesus, go away.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to do my job. Like, so it's like it's got to be used sparingly. I think finding the right ways to target it, making sure it's good content. I mean, that's just in general with content, right? Like, I can't tell you how often someone's like, click here to download your ebook. And I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. And you download it and it's like a 3-page like AI generated piece of garbage. You're like, I am never trusting content from you again, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it has to be good. I know that sounds like a cop
I
out
think
answer, but
no, this also aligns with what we've been seeing in move to, like, every company's content is way more playbook based now. People don't want to know general stuff. They want
yeah,
to know, how do I get from A to B, even if it's not using your product. Like, just
yeah,
tell me, and that's this example of this content. It's not using outreach. It's actually using, the 30 minutes to President's Club. Like, maybe it's touching on outreach, but it's a much broader. This is a playbook to make you better at your job.
yeah,
And it's nice to see. It's nice to see this move away from, this is less about us and more about you achieving your goal. Here is a playbook to be better at it.
yep,
And it helps you as the buyer also be like, do they really get what I'm trying to achieve? Have they written a playbook that either just doesn't get how the job really works, or is just like wrong? Like, is this actually helping me get better? If it
yeah.
is, now I trust this company way more.
Yeah, I mean, like, we've seen like I've had 15 people reach out to me since we put the NDR playbook out, asking me to come like teach their team how to do the NDR playbook.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like that's you could not have a better signal indicating that we did content good. Content that's not English. We did a good piece of content. We
yeah.
did content well. You know what I mean. Um,
Well, we had an NDR reach out to you as well, right?
yeah, someone who's like, I gave myself this title and I'm trying it out. lots of cool stuff that came from it, right? It's like people want actionable stuff, they want valuable stuff, they want insightful stuff, or they want entertaining stuff. And if it's not one of those three, actually I said four things, but basically if your content's not educational, entertaining, or informative, nobody cares. Or
There's so much content out there, you have to tick those boxes.
Yeah.
But
Sorry, go for it.
this is quite helpful then, segue into the NDR playbook. Like what made you get started on putting that together? Like where can people find it?
Oh, we're gonna slip the little call to action into the.
You got to.
It's yeah, NDR playbook. So it's the Network Development Representative playbook. We put it out like what 2 weeks ago now ish, something like that. It's our proposal for like what the SDR role should evolve into. The SDR, the BDR, the XDR, whatever you want to call it. Nice putting it in chat there. Slick move. Once again, basically to Neil, who's already seen it, but in case you missed it or you wanted to click on it again, Neil. See, this is the perk of being early to a new show, right? You get like really personalized audience callouts, right? It's like, we see you, Neil. we see you. Pointing right at the camera. I'm pointing at you.
Picture of Neil up on the wall behind us next week.
You know what's kind of funny, actually, is like, you know, at the end of total sidebar, at the end of some YouTube videos, they'll like thank their like Patreon supporters like by name.
Yeah, of course.
Be kind of funny to be like having like the photo on the wall of like viewer of the month, like employee of the month type thing. And it's like whoever engaged the most with last week's show gets their like employee of the month.
Love
on
it.
the background.
We can go hard if you're listening. We will get that sorted.
I guess I can turn off the that post there for a second. What was I saying? NDR playbook. That's a thing I was talking about. Neil says, feel free to send me gifts. We got you. We'll. Do you like Lego? We got Lego dinosaurs. Does that count as a valid gift? I did actually have someone. Total sidebar, but speaking of gifts, one of our customers sent me a real dinosaur tooth fossil.
What?
It's an actual Spinosaurus dinosaur tooth. How cool is that? I'm just like pull it up to the camera a bit. Come on, focus. There we go. It's an actual fossilized tooth. There we go. Jaunty Knox. We got 2 people in the comments. Oh, now I'm totally cutting myself off on the weird green screen line that we're supposed to try to hide. Update the graphic with our names and titles. Yeah, we should add little like, oh my God, what we need to do with the fake desk, it needs to be like, you know those signs where it's like someone's title on their desk? That it needs to be like baked into the desk scene.
Absolutely.
Anyways, I've now been distracted. I'm like 3 rabbit holes. I'm like a rabbit hole in a rabbit hole.
You did. You sidebarred. I think you sidebarred 2 prior sidebars as you went.
That's my brain.
NDR playbook.
Yes, NDR playbook. Essentially, it's all about like balancing long-term and short-term as a sales development representative, right? It's like basically the stat that 3 to 5% of your buyers are in market at any given time. It's all about using signals and intent data to identify that 3 to 5%. And yes, you should try to book meetings and sell to those. If someone's in market, like sell, obviously, right? But for the other 90 to 95%, it's all about how do you get them like into your network? How do you pull them into the sphere of influence of your company so when they are ready to buy, you're top of mind for them? How do you build a relationship with them, get them involved in your community, get them sucked into your content, get them to download your playbook, right? Like I will bet a significant amount of money. Anyone who takes this bet is an idiot, basically. That we will close a deal more than 12 months from now because someone downloaded our NDR playbook in the last 2 weeks, right? Like that.
Oh yeah.
I just like we closed a deal last week from someone I had coffee with 4 years ago and haven't spoken to since then, right? Like people remember you if you actually leave an impression, once again, educate them or entertain them. Anyways, the NDR playbook's all about that. Download it, read it, have fun with it, implement it, tell us it's stupid. You know, I always tell people this, like, it's nice to hear feedback. It's like, this is an awesome playbook. But I actually like the feedback. Be like, hey, I think this part of the playbook is dumb, or I disagree with this part of it. Like, that's actually more interesting and helpful to hear. Like, listen, like, I'll take compliments all day long, but, you know, tell me what sucks too.
Love it. But I totally agree with what you talk about with NDR playbook on kind of who's in the market. And we also touch on in the document, you know, like creating content, being a part of the community as well. And like you said, creating something like this, opportunities and deals will come from it. I had that as an individual rep. I started making my own research because I was really excited by the space. I then started sharing that with people, posting on LinkedIn. Here's a snippet. If you want the whole thing, let me know. Sending it out. I think on one piece early on, I got like 100 people saying, yeah, I'd like it. From that, I think I got 3 demos and one of them bought. It was about a $35,000 contract. And that was within, I think, 6 to 8 weeks of publishing it. And that was something I made myself. That was, I was
Yeah.
engaged in the community, wanted to be a part of it. So, you don't have to
And
wait for
you probably
marketing
became a
and
better seller because you were more deeply engaged in the community. So you were actually, doing what a seller is supposed to do, which is understanding your buyers and their problems and their needs and their wants. So it's like you're not just making a relationship for the sake of making a relationship. Like I think people misunderstand the whole like buy from people and like, oh, like, connect with your prospects. That's not saying like be friends with them. That's not like be like take them out for a
yeah.
beer and get to know. Listen, if that happens, great. Like I have sold to people that I've become friends with and had people try to sell to me that I've become friends with and vice versa. Um, it means like get to know them as humans though, right? It's like actually get to know the people behind the screen. I think people misinterpret it to mean like be friends, and that's just not what that
Yeah,
means
I
at
had to
all.
learn that as a CSM
Yeah.
back at Tessian. You're like you want your customers to always respond to you and like you, and so you try and become friends with them, and then you realize like no, I just need to deliver value. If I'm always making sure an interaction with me is valuable, they will always answer the phone. I don't need to know the name of their dog. Like that will help, but that's not going to clinch the renewal. It's
Yeah.
it's actually delivering value, and yeah, that's why being a part of the ecosystem, doing your own research and being able to turn up and be like, I know I'm going to teach this person something they don't know because I'm the one that found it out. Like there is no way they know this piece of information because I've not told them it yet.
Yeah. Spot on. Fully agreed. So
With them,
we're
go on.
bumping up on time. Oh, you have one more. You have another topic we wanna do. We've
No, it
clocked
was
ourselves to an
NDR
hour.
related,
Okay,
but we're
let's
nearly
hear it.
there.
No, we got time. We got a few minutes.
For helping people putting together their own content like that, what did you learn from the process? What would you do differently?
On Sorry, I didn't catch the first half of that because I started reading a
Not a
comment.
problem. On what is this great book? This is above Donald. If you go up, you can see comsor.com playbook, NDR playbook. So this
Or
piece of research that
CMR C
.io. See,
cmsr.io/NDR. I need like a button I
yes,
can push
nice.
just to like put that on screen.
For next
Sorry,
time,
you were
we'll have that
saying.
ready.
Yeah.
The question was, you put together an amazing piece of work in not that long amount of time. Like, what did you learn from that process, and what would you actually do differently for the next piece?
Well, it was actually a lot longer time than right. It's like so. I actually wrote a piece about SDRs should be CDRs, community development reps. I want to say it's 2.5 years ago. So the NDR is really just like an evolution of that thinking. So it's one of those like overnight success, 10 years in the making type vibe where it's like yes, I wrote the playbook in like 2 weeks. Last it was like it was probably 3 hours. I just sat down and like cranked most of it out. Then it was a bunch of time like editing and tweaking and getting people's feedback. But it's a concept I've kind of been working on and tweaking and thinking about for almost 3 years. So like it's the classic case of that story of Picasso. He meets a lady and she's like, "I'll pay you $1,000 if you can draw me something right now." And he whips out a napkin and just like 3 seconds later draws something, right? And she's like, "I just paid you $1,000. You only drew for 3 seconds." And he goes, "And that's why it's worth $1,000 because I've spent so many years doing it that it only takes me 3 seconds." I'm butchering exactly what his
Yeah,
quote was, but I think that's the case. It was like it's been a thing that's been in my mind. I've been thinking about it and developing and talking to people about for years. So it was really just about finally putting pen to paper.
awesome. Um, 7 minutes left. What else do we want to include?
I don't know. I mean, we don't have to talk just for the sake of talking. Should we share a fun
That's
fact
true.
about dinosaurs?
You go first. You've probably got a few more than I do.
We should do a whole episode where it's just how many dinosaur facts can we do? Can we fill a whole hour with just? I probably can actually.
Yeah,
Um,
I think you're going to have to carry the team on that one.
so one of my favorite ones is a simple one, but pterodactyls are not dinosaurs. They're pterosaurs, and they're just the kind of like the main pterosaur, which basically means flying reptile. So they are, they roamed at the same, or roamed, they flew, they were around the same time as dinosaurs, but technically, like ocean-based dinosaurs and air, like flying dinosaurs, are not considered dinosaurs. They are, so flying ones are pterosaurs. Dinosaurs are like, T-Rex, Brontosaurus, the ones you know. And then I'm totally blanking on what sea-based. There's two different words. There's two different categories of sea-based reptiles depending on
Right.
various things. But yeah, pterodactyls
Yeah,
are
yeah.
not dinosaurs. So if that's your favorite dinosaur, I'm sorry, you need to pick a new one.
Or just accept that it's not a dinosaur and you maybe don't. Well, now you've cleaned up space to have a favorite dinosaur as well. You've
Yeah,
now
well
created
now, and
a
here's the
whole
thing:
nother
you could actually
opportunity.
now say you have a favorite pterosaur too. So there are so the pterodactyl is objectively the least cool pterosaur.
Objectively, the least cool. Objectively.
In every possible way. Oh yeah. Okay, I'm finding you a picture right now. Um, this is what we're ending it with because there is pterodactyls are tiny compared to like some lesser known of their counterpart.
No,
Oh
Jurassic
yeah.
Park 3 lied to me. They're huge in Jurassic
Oh,
Park 3.
those were not pterodactyls. Or at least if they called them pterodactyls, they are liars because what those are supposed to be are Quetzalcoatlus, and I'm butchering the name because I'm an idiot and I don't know how to pronounce the name. But if I can pull this up real quick and then share the screen here for you, this I need to actually like pull the image up in a way that I can screen share it. Here we go. This is the Quetzalcoatl, whatever, butchering it. It is massive, and I can't get I gotta pull this up a little bit. 1 second. It's like all. Look at that. Look at this thing next to a person. Look at the size of that thing. Can't even fit it on the screen. It's cropping it out. So this is. Look at the size of its head.
It looks like a turkey.
It's huge.
But I mean, I don't know the size of the warehouse that dinosaur's in. Sorry, not dinosaur.
There's a
Pterosaur.
person there for reference. So there's like if you
Oh,
assume that
damn.
that's a 6 foot
Okay.
person,
That is the thing that was in Jurassic Park 3.
If that's a 2 meter person,
yeah.
this thing is what, 10 meters tall? I think they
You
got
could
up to
sleep in
about-
its bill. That's
Yeah,
big.
I mean, like what's really wild to me is like not the like okay, we knew dinosaurs and pterosaurs were big, but just the proportions of head to body, it looks so fake. It is ridiculous looking.
That's a terrifying seagull. Seagulls steal your chips on the beach.
Yeah.
This is taking more than just your chips.
So like pterodactyls are budget pterosaurs. Like they get way too much credit and recognition for what they are. That's my hot dinosaur take. We'll end this on.
I think that's the perfect way to end it. Anything else to add? Otherwise, thanks for joining for the inaugural Goats Network Weekly live.
Yeah. GTN show is what we called it. No. Yeah.
That's it. The GTN show in the end. Yes.
We don't even know what our own show is called. We will, I take John T. Knox. We'll take your feedback and make sure our names are here and maybe like a little like label that says like GTN show or so. Well, this is V1. This is V0. It's only going to get better from here or worse. We don't know, actually. I can't make any promises. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. This is just an experiment for us. We'll be back next week. It'll actually just be Christian and a guest next week because I will be on a plane during this time next week. But our goal is this time, 9 p.m. EST, 9 a.m. EST, 3 p.m. CET. We will be here every Friday talking about sales, marketing, go to market, go to network.
Yeah.
Cool things.
If there's something you want us to talk about, send it in. We're more than happy to do some extra research and come back with our findings.
And with that,